Things are changing. People are actually having success at stalling the rollout of 5G. So,
But if nothing changed, if it just continued full on, where are we going to be?
I think our humanity is at risk, because how are we even going to be interacting with each other with all of these devices, not to mention the electromagnetic fields, the overstimulation of our brain. Our brain goes into fight or flight with all of the screen use, be it wireless or not. I just can't even wrap my mind around the unbridled rollout of this technology. I'm already in shock at where we are now. So I know that scientists are also talking about increased, everything we just talked about, increased cancers and immune system dysfunction. So I have my eye on the prize of slowing this down so that we can have a more responsible look. And we haven't even talked about blue light, which is all wrapped up in this, but you want to add in your thoughts?
Just wrap up 5G.
Oh, 5G. Okay.
Okay, so let's, I'm an optimist with most things, but I realize when an international industry has already invested $500 billion, it's going to be very, very hard to slow this down. So it's not going to stop at 5G. They're already working on 6G.
And 7G.
And it's not going to stop on 6G. It's going to go to 7G. So in 5 years, we won't be talking about this. We'll have a panel here and say, gee, are we going to be worrying about 7G? It's coming out. When we have our children not having the #1 killer of babies below 5, brain cancer, but maybe it's going to be catastrophic at that point. At this point, that's the fact. The #1 killer, disease killer, babies below 5 is brain cancer. I'll repeat, that was non-existent a generation ago. Neurological problems, okay? A lot of you are feeling them. Discomfort, you have pain, you can't sleep at night, in part, and if not in great part, depending upon if your head is next to the smart meter on the other side of the wall, or if, by the way, you have live Wi-Fi on in the middle of the night when you're trying to sleep, or how about if you combine those together, and in your neighborhood they have cell towers. Well, you don't even have to be a reader. Just look at the documentary on cell towers in the middle of New York City, where they took mathematicians and statisticians and showed the closer you live to it, the more cancer you have, period. These aren't things we're worrying about. These are things we know about. The worry is that we're not doing enough about them. The next thing you have to understand is fertility. Yes, people will say, well, there's too many people on the planet, but when you're not fertile, you're sick. There's something going on with you. So it's not just representative that you can't have a child. That's a sad enough problem. But how about now you're well on your way to have a wide variety of other diseases? So the immune system's low, the soldiers are low, in your army you lose the war. And the war is every disease known to man. So this is nothing to tiptoe around and think, oh, we're going to get by this. Again, $500 billion is a pretty damn big investment. It's $500 billion. They're going to roll out about $2 to $3 trillion on this in the next 4 to 5 years.
I'll go to an extreme. I love Dr. Powell. He's one of the very first biochemists who actually broke down what happens in an exposure to the cell. He tells you how the calcium penetrates the cell. He tells you how it breaks the cell up. He shows you how it mutates the cell. That's very important. In his words, he thinks in 3 generations we can't make babies. So the impact of 5G is a bit more catastrophic in nature in that sense. So you can't have babies. It typically takes 10 to 20 years, maybe 30 years before we understand what we introduced into our environment. I think in this case, it's going to be more accelerated.
5 to 10 years.
Because it's going to be 5 and 10 years, and you're going to actually start seeing real evidence of the biological impacts because of the technologies we see. But by that time, it's a little late because we all are now suffering. Over the last 10 years, smoking cigarettes has been down by 50%. And I got to reinforce something people are saying. I don't think it's the cancer that's the worst place. It's the physiological and neurological impacts to the brain itself that controls your body that's going to be worst hit. We already know we see changes in the frontal lobe in anger and all the control functions of the brain that are being impacted just from 4G. 5G, as I mentioned when I started, it's 2 signals hitting the head, not 1. Now there's 2. So, in my opinion, and it's not as bad as Dr. Powell says, but I think somewhere in between is very real, and in 10 years, we're going to have a serious problem that we may not be able to back out of.
So, obviously, it's a
by
big
the way.
problem, and it's urgent. I never entered a football game thinking we were going to lose. That's how I look at it this way. Yeah, we had an undefeated football team. It was good, but never entered thinking we were going to lose. And so my advice here is let's not think of the potential of what may happen in 5 or 10 years. It's good to think about because it's a good question, but it's very productive. And at the same time, we have to get clear that we're not going to lose this battle because it's a battle to protect the total living planet. Everything is at stake. So when we kind of take it that way and know in a way that there's really God in the world and something is going to happen, but we are the key players in that story. So if we take the attitude, we will win, we will prevail, just like we are with smart meters, which was undefeatable at some point, and we really put our energy and attention into it, that's the way we have to go. And with that, I'm going to just give a little prayer about merging the heavens and the earth, because that's exactly what has to happen here. We're talking about the heavens, the sky, and the earth, and it has to come back into harmony. The 20,000 satellites up there are not exactly bringing harmony. So, L'Shem Yakud Kudushabrihu Ushinate I had Shemuke Bavavke Biyudashlam Shem Kozrael Kolam Amen. That, understand, our prayers do make a difference in affecting the outcome. So we have the power of prayer and we have the power of entering with a positive attitude. We will win. And with that, may you all be blessed.